I think let the show begin, and I'd like to introduce our first presenter, our CEO of Aerospike, Subbu Iyer. Subbu, welcome.
Thank you, Martin. Can you hear me? Okay, great. So as Martin said, my name is Subbu Iyer, so that's an I, not an L. So it's a big difference between Iyer and liar. So I just wanted to make sure you guys recognize that. So I'm going to take a few minutes. I know everybody said they're familiar with the Aerospike, but I just want to take a few minutes to walk you through really the founding principles of Aerospike and why Srini, who's our founder, when he comes up on stage, founded the company and what the key thesis and the IP behind the company is. We are around 230, maybe 240 people worldwide. We have offices, obviously headquartered in the US, and then in Europe, we have offices in London, in Paris, in Germany, and then new in Stockholm, covering the Nordics. We have a pretty big presence in Israel, in India, and then we cover the ASEAN countries from our office in Singapore. So globally distributed company. You can see the logos here, across several different industries. We started in ad tech. So that was kind of where the company started with the first release of the first product. Our early customers were ad tech. The trade desk was, I think, customer number 3. Srini can keep me honest. They're still with us, a pretty large user of Aerospike. I still have the old Criteria logo, so we'll update that. So I just realized that before the presentation. But you'll see that after ad tech, we diversified into financial services. We have a bunch of new tech customers: Snapchat, Grab, Dataminr, Roku, Cybereason, and telecom. Along with Nokia, we have a bunch of companies in Asia Pac who are much broader than just usual telecommunications. Airtel, for example, is a telecommunications company. It does direct-to-home TV, and they are also a digital payments bank. And they do all that, customer data platform through Aerospike. Healthcare, we have a couple of different kind of customers. There's Abbott, who does, if you know who Abbott Labs is a pretty large healthcare company. And they have a device which is called the Libre, which is a patch that does continuous glucose monitoring. So for people who have issues with glucose and have to monitor, that entire glucose monitoring actually runs on Aerospike. So every device, every patch is actually updating continuously to a backend which is running on Aerospike. Okay, and they're moving from glucose monitoring over to overall general wellness market with the same product. So very diverse set of use cases. Products, we have a bunch of different products, but in simplicity, we actually provide a real-time data platform. A lot of the uses that Martin talked about in terms of whether there's European Central Bank, PayPal, all those are real-time data use cases, and I'll talk a little bit about that. So this is a pretty busy slide, so I thought I'd build it, and this is really the architecture of the real-time data platform. Just like I said, we started in ad tech. We started as a NoSQL key value database, right? That was the genesis of the company. So very left, we started with key value. 2 years back, we added support for documents. So you can now do JSON documents in Aerospike for 2 years. And then last year, we added support for graph. So you can actually build graphs and manage graphs in Aerospike. And this year, we are adding support for vector. Okay, so at a high level, that's the data models that we support. So it's a multi-model database: key value, document, graph, and vector. Underneath the data models, it's supported by a bunch of real-time data services, whether that is dynamic data distribution, change data notification, smart cluster management, so on and so forth. And the core or the heart of all of this is the high-performance storage engine. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit more detail around hybrid memory, which is a patented architecture that we came up with when the company was founded, and that's our claim to fame. Okay, it's a really innovative architecture that was built by Srini and Brian, who are the founders of the company. And then over time, we've added a bunch of other storage engines, which is all flash, and then recently we added support for NVMe compatible cloud block storage and network attached storage. So the reason we did that is HMA, or hybrid memory architecture, is really good for low latency, high performance workloads. But as our customers started adopting Aerospike, they also wanted to leverage Aerospike for maybe not necessarily sub-millisecond all the time, real time, but also near real time. Maybe they were okay with a few seconds of response time, right? Not all workloads are created the same. So by going to storage platforms like all flash, you can actually further reduce the cost of storage or the cost of infrastructure to match with the requirements of the application from a performance perspective. So we've actually matched our real time and given a lot of choice in terms of deployment platforms and furthering the cost envelope to match with the needs of the application. And then we support a bunch of clients so that as you build on the application, you can use any of those clients to build your applications to connect to the database. And we support a multi-cloud infrastructure. Support AWS, GCP, Azure, can run it on our premises. You can use Kubernetes or OpenShift to manage the database. So at the end of it, we are a multi-model, multi-cloud database. Okay, so it's pure software. There's nothing hardware here. So you can run it on premises. You can run it in any of those three clouds that I talked about. When it's a database, ultimately you're using it to store data. So you got to bring data into the database. And in order to do that, we built a bunch of connectors that ingest data, that let you ingest data at very high speed through our connector family of products. So we have connectors for Kafka, we have connectors for Pulsar. So if you're using any of these technologies to bring data in, our connectors can let you ingest and store data in the Aerospike database at a very high speed. And once the data is in the database, you want to analyze or query the database or do something with the data. So we have an entire set of connectors on the other side, whether it's Spark or whether it's Presto Trino or Elasticsearch connectors to let you do your analytical queries or regular queries, search queries. So think about it as there's a set of connectors on the source side, which is on your left to ingest data from, and a set of connectors on the sink side. So that once the data is in the database, you can now start processing it or analyzing it. This in a hot shell is the architecture of the Aerospike real-time data platform. Okay. Now I'm going to take a few more minutes to talk about this, but as I said, the core and the heart and the patented architecture is hybrid memory architecture, or HMA. We've supported and extended that to support all flash, in memory, and then latest NVMe compatible block storage, as I talked about, and network attached storage. But it's not just about hybrid memory architecture. It's a distributed NoSQL real-time database that we have surrounded with a bunch of other capabilities, whether that's dynamic cluster management, strong consistency, cross data center replication, so that if you're trying to replicate data across two regions, you can do that using our XDR capability. Or it could be on-premise to cloud or cloud to on-premise or from AWS to GCP, what have you. So very, very kind of powerful set of technologies that I've built. And then we also have the ability to do synchronous active-active replication. So the database is fully functional and supports a lot of different advanced capabilities, not just ingesting and storing data in the database. Just a slide on really what's such a big deal about hybrid memory architecture. This is the claim to fame for Aerospike in the early days and still. So if you look at this particular left-hand side here, this is basically when the company was founded, it bet heavily on SSDs. 10 years back, 12 years back, SSDs were still new to the market. Right? It wasn't clear that they're going to be successful because the mean time between failures, mean time to recovery was really not predictable as far as SSDs were concerned. But Srini and Brian bet heavily on SSDs. They worked with some of the early SSD vendors and said, we are going to build Aerospike to really store data on SSDs. And hybrid memory essentially means we are storing indexes in memory or DRAM, and all data is stored on SSDs. So you're getting two benefits with that. One, you're getting near memory performance because of a lot of the optimizations that we have done, but you're saving a lot of money because memory is the most expensive piece of media. So for the same amount of data, if you had to store data, all that data in memory, you'd be spending a lot more money. With Aerospike, we are only storing the indexes in memory and all the data is in SSDs. Okay? And you're not compromising on performance because you're getting near memory performance in spite of data being on SSDs. So this is really, really important vis-a-vis kind of some of the other traditional databases out there. This is the secret to why we are so successful and so powerful and so performant. And as I said earlier, we've extended this now to all flash and other storage architecture to help customers match cost and performance considerations. Because not all applications necessarily need sub-millisecond performance. Okay? So this is just an example of the power of HMA, or what happens when you're able to store data on SSDs and only indexes in memory. For the same amount of data, you can actually reduce the number of nodes by up to 80%. When Criteo, Maxine comes up and talks about the example for Criteo, you'll see a powerful example of how Criteo has reduced the number of servers that they're running their workloads on with Aerospike. Okay, this is a very simplistic example, but whether it's on premises or even in the cloud, like AWS and GCS, there are really large instances with a lot of SSD storage available per instance. So if you can get 8 to 16 to 18 to 36 terabytes per node in the cloud, whether you have hundreds of terabytes or a petabyte of storage, you don't need as many nodes with Aerospike as compared to any other database out there. But it's not just cost. The other side of the coin is if you're able to reduce the number of servers by 60 to 80%, just think about the impact it has on the CO2 emissions. So there's a huge sustainability advantage here too. This is just an example of Aerospike versus Cassandra. Behrad, who's going to talk and show the demo with Srini when he comes up here, has written a paper on really how efficient Aerospike is in terms of annual emissions per terabyte of data. That's the chart on the left, and this is really the TCO of Aerospike versus Cassandra. This is just one example, right? We do this again and again. This could be Redis, this could be Couchbase, this could be any other database here. Okay, so significant TCO savings. And the flip side of the same coin is amazing sustainability story too. So what's our promise to our customers? There are 4 underlying promises. Whether you're using Aerospike as a key value database, document, graph, vector, and something else in the future, these 4 principles extend themselves to any data model, any applications that are built on Aerospike. The first one is we provide the industry's lowest latency. Again, as I said, because of the way we are architected, so it helps you make decisions and better decisions faster. The second one is really important. Most of our customers are running mission-critical workloads on Aerospike. So these workloads cannot go down. I mentioned the trade desk. Trade desk has been running on Aerospike without a production downtime for 10 years. I cannot think about another database on the planet other than maybe the mainframe that can actually be available for 10 years with no production downtime. So we've spent a lot of time in making sure we can deliver 5.9 availability to our customers. I talked about really TCO. We talk about it as really giving you the combination of really real-time performance, low latency with the lowest TCO in the market so that you don't have any more limits. One of the challenges with data is as you start ingesting more data and you want to drive value from that data, traditionally you have to spend a lot more money. So data keeps growing and then your spend actually crosses over. So you're actually losing money, ironically, as you start to harness and drive more data. We let you actually do that in a profitable manner, right? Bring more data to work for you. And the last one is really, no matter what scale you're starting at, we can guarantee you that you will never have to re-platform. A lot of customers we talk to start their journey with ABC database or XYZ database, and they hit a wall. And they say, hey, we run into an issue because the database can't scale, or the latency is not keeping up, or it's not meeting our SLAs, and they have to re-platform. So a lot of the new customers we are talking to, they're starting early because they have this concept of aspirational scale. Whether you're a small company, you're a medium-sized company, or a large company. So a lot of our customers have become a lot more successful in their journey as they have become successful as companies. And they've never had to re-platform because the platform scales with you. So no rewriting of applications, none of that nonsense going forward. Okay, so what are some of the use cases that we power? This is just a smattering of use cases, repeatable use cases that we see out there: recommendation engines, fraud prevention, feature store, ad targeting, identity graphs. Mainframe augmentation is a pretty popular use case, operational data stores, user profile stores. And then with AI, and you'll see a demo here from Behrad when he comes up on how we are able to actually leverage the power of Aerospike within more of a hybrid search using key value graph and vector. But RAG is a popular use case in AI-based applications right now. Semantic search, obviously powered by vector databases. These are some of the kind of repeatable use cases that we see out there across industries. That was basically a quick background on Aerospike. As we see out there, as AI-based applications are being adopted in enterprises, we see data as basically the currency of AI. Our thesis is that AI gets better as you're able to leverage more data. More data builds more context for AI. You get better AI, more accurate AI as a result of bringing more data to work. But the challenge always has been that as you get more data to work, as I mentioned, you have to spend a lot of money on the infrastructure. With Aerospike, you don't have to do that. So you can have your cake and eat it too, if you will. Okay, but this is the key to AI-based applications. If you look at the growth of data, I could have put this slide up 5 years back, 10 years back, and the CAGR would still be 30%. The compounded average growth rate, annual growth rate of data has always been around 30%. But what's interesting is the real-time component is growing also at that particular rate, a pretty significantly higher rate. And we think as AI applications mature, they will actually require more real-time AI apps. Because AI is going to be more powerful the more real-time it is. Okay. So a couple of slides saying, where AI is within organizations. This was a survey done by TCS. And it's very clear that AI is in the very early innings of adoption within enterprises. People are playing, there are some applications in production, but there's a lot more applications, and every facet of society is going to be really impacted by AI and AI-based applications. This is another study or survey that was done by a bunch of folks. Merv Adrian was a pretty senior analyst at Gartner. He retired and he's doing his own consulting firm. And so Merv and a couple of his colleagues ran this. And really what they wanted to see was, hey, how are companies leveraging AI and what kind of infrastructure are they doing? So obviously 60% came back and said they're adding AI-specific technology to their existing infrastructure. The second one there is 40+% of companies are actually saying, I need a different architecture or infrastructure architecture for my AI applications. And I think that second one only is going to increase more, because companies are going to realize that they need to rethink their infrastructure stack to really build next generation AI applications. So our priorities are very simple. The 3 priorities for us as Aerospike. cloud being one, AI being number two, and simplification being number three. Cloud, just quickly touching on cloud, I said we support all the three clouds. We also support Aerospike as a managed service. And then last year, we released Aerospike Database as a Service on AWS. This year, we'll be supporting Database as a Service on GCP for folks who are Google Cloud customers. And then later this year, we'll also release our vector and graph database products as a service on both AWS and GCP. So really big initiative and priority for us from a cloud perspective. AI, we have started, as I said, last year with Graph. We'll be releasing Vector shortly here. Those are going to be kind of our first two products that we will actually release to the AI market. We're also integrating our vector database with the cloud capabilities, cloud platforms like Bedrock on AWS, Vertex on GCP, LangChain for workflow automation for AI applications. So you'll see a lot more innovation coming out on the AI front. And simplification, this is basically something that probably will continue as a priority for us over the next several years. We want to make it easier for both builders and operators to work with Aerospike. So you're a developer, you're a builder, we want to make it easier and easier for you to build newer applications on Aerospike. That means simplification of our APIs, more documentation. We created a developer hub at developer.aerospike.com so that you can get sample applications, tutorials, documentations to get started with Aerospike. And then for the operators, we are investing a lot in automation. We have a Kubernetes operator, which has been judged one of the best Kubernetes operators in the market out there. But we also want to build a lot on observability and management. So we're investing very heavily on observability and management for the operators. Okay, so these are our three priorities. Just a quick touch on Aerospike Graph. So when Martin talked about PayPal, the example, so PayPal, if you use PayPal to pay anybody, every transaction goes through a fraud check, as you can imagine. And that fraud engine for PayPal runs on Aerospike. Okay. And before we had a graph product, PayPal implemented a graph, built a graph on top of Aerospike database. And they are the ones who said, hey, you guys should actually build out a graph product because there's nothing which is really highly scalable as a graph product out there. And that's why we built it. As you can see, we can support trillions of vertices and edges and yet do low latency multi-hop queries traversing the graph. Throughput is roughly about 100,000 plus QPS. So today we support OLTP workloads on Graph, and then in next quarter, we'll be supporting also OLAP, which means you will be able to run not just transactional workloads on Aerospike Graph, but also analytical workloads in the next quarter onwards. Okay, and everything that I talked about in terms of those four pillars, remember, high performance, low latency, high availability, low TCO, you automatically get it with Aerospike Graph because this is how Aerospike Graph is high level architected. The database still resides the way it resides, and it sits on the storage engine. But then for Graph, we disaggregated compute and storage. So we used Apache Tinkerpop as our base engine for Aerospike Graph. And this particular compute engine is disaggregated from the storage engine so that you can scale both of them independently of each other. Okay. So you can add more data or more storage if that's what you need to the graph, or if you need more compute, you can add more compute nodes. And all of this is really based off of the Gremlin query language, which is pretty standard out there. We're also looking at supporting OpenCipher because a lot of customers have Cipher-based applications or graph applications they've built out. Okay, so that's kind of the direction for Graph. Same thing with vector. Srini will come here in a minute or later and then talk a lot more in detail on vectors. But even with vector search, it's a disaggregated architecture so that the actual vector search layer is disaggregated, from the database layer. Again, you can do the same independent scaling of the compute and the storage nodes. And there's a bunch of open source vector databases out there. There are commercial vector databases out there. Why is Aerospike doing this? Because we believe we can bring something very differentiated to the market. Again, our key value proposition of performance, high scale, low latency TCO is really relevant again to the vector database. So you can actually, store billions of vectors, run them through millions of QPSs, as you can see, P99 latencies, which are around the 20 milliseconds. And we have some patented IP as far as indexing is concerned, so that it's actually real-time indexing and really fast indexing. So this is the reason why we are coming out with vectors. And as I promised, when Bharat comes up, he's going to show you the power here of three. So imagine you're a retailer and you're selling shoes and somebody's looking for a blue shoe, right? It's a Nike shoe. That's a key value search because you're looking for an exact match. But now imagine you want to say, hey, I want to look for similar items to that blue shoe, right? That kicks off a vector search because it's a similarity search. Having done that, you also want to actually provide some recommendations saying people who bought this blue shoe also bought, or a combination of these also bought this other attire. That's actually graph. And the demo that Bharat has will show you, how you can actually do this and use the power of a multi-model key value vector and graph search in a single database. You don't need 3 different databases to make this happen. Pretty powerful. How many other people can do this? Okay, so just to close out, in summary, if you need a high performance, sub-millisecond or a few second kind of response time with the reliability of 5.9 availability, large scale support, both in terms of aspirational scale and petabyte scale, along with the TCO that we talked about, there's no other game in town but Aerospike. This is just a bunch of assets. As I talked about, developer.aerospike.com has basically all the assets if you're a builder or a developer. We have a Discord community. You can go to GitHub, some sample applications. And then if you're interested in the vector search preview, you just go to aerospike.com/vector, or you can just take a picture of this and scan those barcodes and get to the appropriate. Thank you. That's it. Questions? Apparently, we have time for questions. I don't promise answers, but you can ask questions. No? It was too complicated? No, just kidding. Thank you.